This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Okay, so talking about Wheel of Time spoilers, trying to keep up with the Patreons.
Yes.
We've had 2 patrons in the last week. Donald Geisler.
Ooh. I
think I'm pretty good on that one. And I'm not sure how to pronounce this one. Randall Thor, something like that. Yeah, Randall Thor. I think that's the name that he went by. Yeah.
Randall Thor is supporting us?
That would be the name of the person, yes, that they put in.
I mean, but we were already supporting Randall Thor because we are dragons.
Right.
So...
But this is like the leader coming back and supporting, his troops. Right?
Okay, cool. Well, I think that's very, very cool. Thank you, Randall Thor.
And to whatever your actual name actually is. If it is Randall Thor, I would be really impressed.
It's been 33 years since the books came out. So you could have someone named Randall Thor who's old enough to be our patron at this point.
I suppose. Donating. Anyone can legally change their name, I suppose.
This is also true.
Also, you can pay on Patreon under a name that's not yours. Not sure if you're aware of that.
Yeah, so we don't have any cutesy thing to do for the fact that we're announcing new patrons, but thank you, 2 new patrons.
Thank you very much.
So, do we want to wrap up this here cleansing?
Yes, the final segment of the cleansing. Oh, let me open that up. I had Crossroads of Twilight open. I forgot about the end of Winter's Heart, finally. All these many months later.
Many months later. We are finally going to finish Book 9.
Not that far away from when we're going to finish Book 10.
Yeah. This is working out well.
Do you want to read the Cadsuane and I'll read the Omni?
Sure. It's kind of a long Cadsuane, but it's a really good ending because it's literally the end of the 9th book of the Wheel of Time.
Yeah, and I think it is worth reading this whole thing. I highlighted most of it.
Fair enough. I did too. Cadsuane let the thing that had been a ter'angreal drop to the ground. It could no longer be called a statue of a woman. The face was as wisely serene as ever, but the figure was broken in 2 and lumpy like bubbled wax where one side had melted, including the arm that had held the crystal sphere now lying in shattered fragments around the ruined thing. The male figure was whole, and already tucked away in her saddlebags. Kalendor was secured too. It was best not to leave temptation on the open hilltop. Where Shadar Logoth had been, there was now a huge opening in the forest, perfectly round, and so wide that even with the sun low on the horizon she could see the far side sloping down into the earth. Lan, leading his limping warhorse up the slope, dropped the black stallion's reins when he saw Nynaeve stretched out on the ground and covered to her chin with her cloak. Young Althor lay at her side, also blanketed in his cloak, with Min curled up against him, her head on his chest. Her eyes were closed, but by her small smile, she was not asleep. Lan barely spared them a glance as he ran the last distance and fell on his knees to raise Nynaeve's head gently on his arm. She did not stir any more than the boy. "They are just unconscious," Cadsuane told him. "Corell says it is better to let them recover on their own." And how long that might require, Corell had not been prepared to say. Nor had Dahmer. The wounds in the boy's side were unchanged, though Dahmer had expected they would be. It was all very disturbing. A little farther up the hill, the bald Ashaman was bent over a groaning Beldine, his fingers writhing just above her as he wove his strange healing. He had been busy the last hour. Olivia could not stop staring in wonder and flexing the arm that had been broken as well as seared to the bone. Serene walked unsteadily, but that was just tiredness. She had almost died out there in the forest, and her eyes were still wide with the experience. Whites were not used to that sort of thing. Not everyone had been so lucky. Varen and the sea folk woman were sitting beside the cloak-covered form of Chimera, their lips moving silently in prayers for her soul, and Nassoon was trying awkwardly to comfort a weeping Daigion, who cradled young Eben's corpse in her arms and rocked him like a baby. Greens were used to that sort of thing, but Cadsuane did not like losing 2 of her people in return for no more than a few singed Forsaken and 1 dead renegade. "It's clean," Shahar said softly yet again. This time, Maurice was the one sitting, with his head resting in her lap. Her blue eyes were stern as ever, but she stroked his black hair gently. It's clean. Cadsuane exchanged looks with Maurice over the boy's head. Dahmer and Jahar both said the same thing. The taint was gone, but how could they be sure some scrap did not remain? Maurice had allowed her to link with the boy, and she could not feel anything like what the green had described. Yet how could they be certain? Saidin was so alien that anything could be hidden in that mad chaos. I want to leave as soon as the rest of the warders return, she announced. There were too many questions for which she had no answers to suit her, but she had young Althor now, and she did not intend to lose him.
Night fell. On the hilltop, the wind blew dust across the fragments of what had once been a Terangrial. Below lay the tomb of Shadar Logoth, open to give the world hope. And on distant Tremalking, the word had begun to spread that the time of illusions was at an end. The end of the 9th book of the Wheel of Time.
Boom!
Woo!
Seth is so much more dramatic today.
Well, it's the Omni voice, right? You really got to go. How many Omni POVs does Jordan have? Not very many.
Not many.
Yeah.
I'd say less than one per book, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from, like, the wind. But the wind is a POV. It's not Omni.
No, the wind always goes into somebody's POV. And I guess it's the wind's POV, technically.
But the wind is an individual.
Right.
It's not omniscient
Right.
or omnipresent or any of the Omnis.
It sees what it sees as it flows through the air. Yeah.
So, yeah, let's talk about it.
Well, we melted the statue, the female statue, right? I think that's the first thing, right? Cadsuane establishes, right? We've got a melted female statue and an intact male statue. We know from other parts of the book and or I can't remember the exact reference, but we know that the female, like we found this in one of the other chapters, the large female statue was also melted and shattered and destroyed on Tremalking.
Yes, it lights up. Well, presumably both the globes light up, but yes, that one spiders out and melts. I think it is described as having melted.
So she puts away the male half of the Terangrial, and she puts away Kalendor. Right, so we get both of those are coming out of this intact. And would assume like all the rest of them as well, right? The only thing we've really lost is the female half.
Right. The whole is perfectly round.
Mm-hmm.
That description is reinforced here because she's seeing it, minutes to an hour after everything's happened. Barely any collapses had a chance to occur, all that.
Right, because we see the edges of it collapse when the Aes Sedai show up, right? They show up and look at it and they're like, oh, it's not a perfect circle anymore because edges of it have collapsed.
Right. It seems like it might have been a perfect circle, but Cadsuane's confirming here, yeah, definitely.
And that's assuming that, like, what kind of ground would collapse in that situation as opposed to, I guess, anything that was soil or gravel or anything that wasn't solid rock, basically.
Yeah, I would assume that it was a very, like, sandy loam soil, like a nice agricultural region where a city would have outlying farms that could feed it. Like, it wasn't described as a mountain city, right? It was described as being fairly accessible. So I would assume that it was surrounded by fertile lands. So yeah, not stony bedrock until you get, a little ways down.
Oh, I like what Charmy's saying, that the power was basically suffusing the statue, and once you stop channeling, it collapsed inwards, and that caused the destruction.
Oh, I like that. It got stretched like past its elastic breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
That would make sense. You chewed your gum too hard. It broke.
Lan goes to Nynaeve, and Min is with Rand, right? And they're both unconscious, sleeping it off. Mm-hmm. That exhaustion that we talked about, right? Like that Cadsuane wiped away from Nynaeve.
Yeah, she eased it a little bit, but Nynaeve is still going to need a nap. I think it gets described as sleeping for like 2 days.
Okay.
After. I think Nynaeve thinks back and is like, I don't really remember much of what happened. I remember waking up and being glad it was over. But I think that they sleep for like at least a solid day, if not 2 days.
Here's a good question. Why are the wounds in Rand's side unchanged with the cleansing? Or why would they be changed, right? Like one way or the other.
I feel like the way that they've been kind of corralled off and are fighting each other in his side, plus the fact that the dragon is one with the land, means that like those little pieces of evil exist independently of their sources. Like they've kind of broken off, and like Fane has broken off, right? Like Fane didn't vanish when Shadar Logoth vanished. I think that the evil in Rand's side is a little more like Fane than like the city. And so it's independently still feeding off of his life energy and making a home in him. And I don't see why the other wound would have changed, because it's the taint didn't explicitly like make that wound. It was a wound from Ishamael and like a dream magic weapon thing, but it wasn't really explicitly tied to the taint. So I don't see why that would have gone away either.
I always assumed that it's because it was formed using the true power. And the true power essentially is the taint, right? Is the power of the Dark One.
I don't think the taint and the true power are the same thing.
No?
No, I think the true power is like the life energy of the Dark One, so to speak. And the taint was a like thing that he made to fuck with people. Like it was a creation.
But it's still the essence of the Dark One, right? It's like not usable.
I just don't think it's identical. I think he made a thing that specifically fucked with people.
Sure.
Like sent that out into the world. Whereas the true power is like some sort of symbiotic relationship he has with the people that channel it.
The only reason I might think that somehow Rand's side would be affected is because he is one with the land, and he has carved Shadar Logoth out, right? He has removed Shadar Logoth. And so with the removal of that wound from the land, you would think perhaps, you know, the fight that's been going on in Rand's side, right? That it's described that if Padden Fane had slashed him anywhere else, he would have died immediately. It was the fact that he slashed them over the wound that was full of the Dark One's taint, or whatever you want to call it, the Dark One's power, that stopped the Shadar Logoth from taking him over. So they've been fighting this whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, if that wound, if the Shadar Logoth wound had vanished with the cleansing, I don't think we would have questioned it.
Right.
It would have made a lot of sense. But then what would have happened with that other wound if it didn't have something to fight? That might have been very bad for Rand. It might be a plot reasons thing that Jordan couldn't figure how to justify taking away both. But I guess, I mean, honestly, if they'd both been taken away, we wouldn't have questioned it.
No, it would have been wiped out the same way that the land sort of canceled out the Shadar Logoth and the taint canceled each other out. I would have loved to see sort of the wound healed in his side finally.
Yeah, I agree with Cadsuane. It's disturbing and it's a little annoying. We never get an explanation for why not, except for just the Fane theory of like it's now independent and has severed the connection.
And I do like that it's what kills Rand, right? It is the wound in his side that ends up finally killing him. It is that moment when he uses the heron in the Great Hunt and he accepts death from the staff, right? He doesn't get out of that. That is what kills him in the end. That is what kills him during the last battle, is that sacrifice and the accepting of death in that moment in the Great Hunt.
It's so bitter that he did that for Egwene, and while he's finishing up with dying, she also dies. That's a bit of a bummer.
Spoilers, Rand dies. Well, his body certainly does.
Now, Charmy's raising an interesting question in the chat. Like, Rand always has a resonance problem being near to Fane. So why didn't his wound reopen while doing the cleansing?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like at the beginning he describes like the twin.
It's aching. Yeah, he can feel it.
Yeah, but then nothing happens with that. So it's like a red herring, nothing burger kind of deal.
I could see that perhaps something about the taint fighting Shadar Logoth keeps it from influencing him, right? All the power is inward directed.
Yeah, and they're just independently able to exist without their respective sources, their respective origin points.
But I'm convinced that Rand is much, much more insane after this, that he's been exposed to a massive amount of taint. And it is like that huge sort of overwhelming blackness that covers his entire brain that Nynaeve sees. I'm convinced this is the moment where it goes from, maybe a web to just a total coating.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Even without directly contacting the taint, just the sheer duration and volume of power he channeled would accelerate that process pretty obviously. Yeah. And he does get way, way darker
Yeah.
After this.
Yeah.
Like when he wakes up from this, he is a different version of himself.
After this point, we get Natrim's Barrow, right? We get this sort of really super dark. If we had Darth Rand before, now we've got like just pure evil Rand, dark side, the Emperor Rand, if you want to go that far.
I mean, it's beyond even wanting power. He's just hitting a nihilistic wall after this point. He's falling off the edge and doesn't care. We get a tally of injuries that our party endured. So Olivia and Serene both like seriously got injured in the fight, but come out of it, you know, without even a scar because Dahmer's there to like do his excellent healing.
Right. Dahmer Flynn's busy for the last hour because he's been healing up all these injuries. Yeah,
Dahmer's going to sleep really well tonight for sure. We've also got our tally of the dead, Kumira and Eben. And yeah, as was said in the chat, like Cadsuane's pretty cool because she just doesn't even rate the Forsaken as relevant compared to her people. She's more angry about losing her people than the fact that like they got a hit against the Forsaken at all, you know?
So just, I actually found an infographic that tells you the effects of what happens when you stop using tainted Sidene. So after 20 minutes, your heart rate and blood pressure drop. After 12 hours, the taint levels in your blood drops, basically to normal. 2 to 12 weeks, your circulation and lung function is going to improve. 1 to 9 months, you're not going to have as much trouble channeling. You're not going to feel the taint. You're not going to feel the insanity quite as bad. After a year, your risk of going insane is about half of what it would be of someone who is continuing to use the taint, right? About 5 to 10 years, your risk of going insane is reduced to that of someone who never channeled in the first place. After 15 years, people might forget about it and treat you like normal. So, yeah, side effects of quitting smoking. I mean, Sidene. Yeah.
Yeah. One of those is actually possible to quit. The other is not.
I don't know. Yeah, tainted Sidene is pretty hard to quit.
It's made pretty abundantly clear that you can't quit being a channeler.
But yes, it is clean, right? Like, I mean, this is the whole, I really hate the debate where the women are like, well, I can't tell what's hiding in that chaos. And the men are like, no, it's fucking clean. All right. Like, listen to me.
Believe people about their experiences.
But they're insane. They can't be honest about it. They can't know anybody. Yeah, no. One of the biggest frustrations I feel like about Crossroads of Twilight appears right here at the end of Winter's Heart.
Yeah, they're just basically ableism of the Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It's a very unsatisfying payoff.
Extremely. Yeah. No, and it's one of those things that we kind of, we talked about this a million times, but we wanted to pay off in Crossroads. So I think it's one of the things that's so frustrating about Crossroads is we want everyone to be like, wow, it's clean. Isn't that so cool? Now we, let's make an alliance with the Black Tower because Sidene is clean. And that makes sense for us as the White Tower. Instead we get the bullshit that we're about to talk about where it's like, oh, there's this new weapon of the Forsaken. I guess we have to control men who can channel, which was the conclusion of the last episode, but now they're implementing that, right?
Right.
The motivation sucks.
Yeah, and I get wanting to test the hypothesis, right? I get being doubtful. You've got a lot riding on this. It makes sense to be very, very sure, but just being like, well, I don't know, end of discussion, is not the right way. I don't know. Let's go design a few experiments so that way we can really solidly prove this to everyone's satisfaction would have been a much more rational response. And I don't think that the men would have had a hard time participating in some experiments to prove the point. Because it's going to be real easy to convince the women who are tied directly to the dragon and his entourage. It's going to be real hard to convince people who weren't there, right? It's going to take time. So a discussion about how to make it performable, fine.
It's not even easy to convince Cadsuane. Right here, she's like, I don't know. I was like, you were there.
She should not be doubting. She shouldn't be doubting.
That's drives me nuts.
I mean, she should be doubting for the duration of linking with one of the channelers. And she should have linked with them before. She should have said, hey, wait, give me 5 minutes.
Establish a baseline.
One of the Ashaman. Yeah, exactly. The fact that she didn't do that is not on the Ashaman. That's on Cadsuane. Cadsuane needs to figure that out for herself rather than casting aspersions on the entire experiment. And yes, it's been millennia. People are going to take time to change, but closing the door on the conversation without even sleeping on it is just peak Aes Sedai arrogance.
You know, I will say that it's one of the things I respect Jordan for being like, oh yeah, people are totally not going to believe this shit, and I'm going to write a story around that. And I'm like, okay, I respect that. That's realistic. That's how people behave. But fuck,
get your realism out of my fantasy.
That's not what I want to read. You know, like I want to read everyone celebrating. Yeah, this is, come on, a little too much of a dose of reality in this one. I want people to just like, oh my god, it's clean, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish there was some easy test to be like, oh yeah, I can see the blackness of the taint when, you know, like in the show, actually they do a pretty good job of that, of showing the blackness in the channeling, as we're seeing from the previews. And if those went away, that would be pretty solid evidence. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well. Aes Sedai gonna Aes Sedai.
And the only thing I had for the Omni is that on distant Tremalking, the word began to spread that the time of illusions was at an end, which we know as a terrible tragedy where everybody commits suicide.
Yeah, he ends the book on, and mass suicide.
Right.
And a cult decides that the rapture is upon us and busts out the flavor aid that they've been holding in reserve for this moment.
I do wish it wasn't mass suicide. I'll be honest. I wish I was like really excited about what the people on Tremalking were going to do. Oh, this is a place we don't know a lot about. Like, yeah, you know, maybe I could see it would be an interesting take on the Way of the Leaf to show these people of Tremalking who are essentially, right, water-based tinkers.
Yes, they definitely are followers of the Way of the Leaf scattered to the ocean instead of the desert.
Right. I would love to see them say, hey, the time of illusion is at end, therefore we are putting aside the Way of the Leaf to fight in the last battle.
Yeah. And they go in there with this absolutely zen, like suicide troop kind of thing. They've been training in like martial arts their whole lives. They're really good at explosives. They know how to make Greek fire.
Something like that.
Like,
yeah.
And they just never did it because the time of illusions was on us and now it's not. Like, they just go in there and get mowed down. But like, they do a bunch of damage. And then Jordan makes us care. As they're dying, he's making us care.
Right.
But no, he just has them all off themselves and then gets mad at us for not caring.
They would be a great Hinder's Tap sort of situation, right?
Exactly who I was thinking of. Yes.
To like let them go in and sacrifice themselves for the last battle instead of, oh, this is going to suck. Poison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like the Ogier being like, oh, book a translation, gotta bounce.
No. Don't do that. That's not, I mean, that's basically what they did is like, we're going to the afterworld. See you later. Peace. We're not here for this. It's going to suck. And it didn't even suck for them. Like, what? Did Tremalking get affected at all? They could have just continued to live just fine. The forces of the shadow never got down to Tremalking, as far as I'm aware.
Now, if you wanted to make the argument that the Kraken was going to come out of the depths, and it was actually Shadow Spawn, and they wanted to just not be there when their island got eaten whole by the Kraken, okay, that's an argument. You all want to be little poison pills so that way the Kraken dies and can't participate in the last battle? Okay, but no sea monster Dark Friends, or no sea monster Shadow Spawn. Lost opportunity.
Yeah, we could see, I would like to see the Kraken like be somehow an evolutionary phase of the worm, right? Or something. Well, because the worm, I think they're not, I see now I'm getting Dune worms confused with Wheel of Time worms. Is water bad for Wheel of Time worms?
No, because dude has to go in there with a stabby stick to kill it and get his magic toy.
Charmy's asking, what Kraken? There's no Kraken. It's a made-up Kraken. It's a made-up, right?
I wish there was Kraken.
Yeah, we're sort of wishing that. But they do talk about Shadow Spawn in the sea, right? That, like, you can't...
No one ever mentions that.
There is. Very early on, there is something about you can't sail into the Blight because there's Shadow Spawn who live in the sea up there. Am I completely on crack?
What? I don't remember this ever being mentioned. I have bitched about this so much. Texas Blade is asking, wasn't it kind of their job to give the sea folk a wake-up call? Well, I wish that they could have sent a memo instead of killing themselves. Now, I always figured that the sea folk just had a couple of random stories, like, oh, there's scary shit in the ocean because, like, you know, whale penises exist.
Well, I'm not finding any references.
No, I think you're just hallucinating that out of the sheer need for there to be an explanation for why the blight isn't in the goddamn ocean. It should be.
It should be. I mean, it goes all the way around the poles, right? Because it extends into...
Yeah, there's just nothing up there for them to sail to. So, there are things in the lake in Eye of the World. Yes, Texas Blade. That freshwater shadow spawn are a thing.
All right. Yeah, well, if anyone can find the quote that I'm thinking of, or tell me that I'm completely full of it. But I thought it was one of those Eye of the World-isms where, there are things, the worms in the lake, or whatever it is in the lake, is probably what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Because I know there's water-based shadow spawn. It's like creatures surface in the lake.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's fair to assume that they exist in the oceans, just they never come down to latitudes that people experience. Josh says, aren't most shadow spawn created? Isn't there enough weird things in the ocean? How would one make it that worse? I mean, the deep dark ocean is a place where shadow spawn would hang out and evolve on their own, for sure. Chapter 20, In the Night, with our symbol being the Dream ter'angreal.
Yeah, so my favorite chapter title, for sure.
Really? In the Night?
Well, sorry, chapter icon, the Dream ter'angreal.
Oh, yeah. No, it's fun. I've always wanted to get one of the rings that is like a replica of it, but I don't actually like how they look, so I'm in a bit of a bind. But I like the icon.
Yeah, the ones I've seen, they never make the hole in the center big enough.
Right, it's too much of a donut.
Yeah, too much of a donut as opposed to more of a ring that actually goes around. You want a very thin ring and a very, I know this is thicker than normal, but the ones I see, the hole is usually maybe a third of the diameter at most, maybe a quarter of the diameter, when I really want it to be like 50 to like 80% of the diameter.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We are both seeing the correct ring.
Exactly, yes. But the physical versions I've seen are not perfect. They're good. Some of them are good, but they're usually math nerds who were creating this shape based on like a formula, and it doesn't perfectly match the icon. Yeah.
But yeah, this is a very awesome chapter for dreams. We get multiple very cool dreams to talk about because Halima is off busily killing Anaya and thus isn't there to screw with Egwene's dreams.
Pre-recording, we were talking about how this is a good chapter, TM, right? This is one of the chapters that we have been waiting for, and it's like, for every POV that we seem to get, there's like 4 or 5 chapters, and one of them is good. And the surrounding crap is just crap that needs to be edited out. So, there's stuff in there that could be condensed down maybe into 2 chapters, right? But yeah, this one is actually like, it's not a name salad. It's got significant dreams. It's got interesting Forsaken stuff. It's got murder, right? It's not just politics and people talking, although it does start out that way.
Yeah, so this is going to be a fun one. It definitely took us a minute to get here.
Yeah.
But we're here on an actually worthwhile Egwene POV, and it feels sloggy to get here, but now we're here, it's not so sloggy.
Yeah, this is a really enjoyable chapter to read.
All right, I'll read us in. Long before the sitting ended, in spite of the cloak folded beneath her, Egwene's bottom was quite numb from the hard wooden bench. After listening to endless discussion, she wished her ears were numb as well. Shiriam, forced to stand, had begun shifting her feet as if wishing for a chair, or maybe just to sit down on the carpets. Egwene could have left, freeing herself and Shiriam. Nothing required the Amerlin to stay, and at best her comments were listened to politely, after which the hall galloped off in its own direction. This had nothing to do with the war, and with the bit between their teeth, the hall was not about to let her get a hand on the reins. She could have walked out at any time, with a slight interruption in the discussions for the required ceremonies. But if she did, she feared that the first thing in the morning she might be handed a fully fledged plan, one the sitters were already carrying out, and her with no idea what was coming until she read it. At least, that was her fear in the beginning.
So this beginning part of the chapter is a continuation of last chapter, right? They said they want to send a delegation to the Black Tower, and they are hammering out the details. And as far as I can tell, the details are, we need to talk about the details.
Yeah, we need to appoint a committee to appoint a committee to appoint a committee.
Right. Which is basically their way of slow walking things. I mean, it seems like they're going to get something done, but it does take a while.
I mean, honestly, I don't think it's slow walking so much as just everyone wants their piece of the pie, and bureaucracy is slow even when everyone's pulling in the same direction.
Yes.
Because they want this.
Well, most of them, right? There's a group of people who didn't vote for it who are dragging their feet, right?
That's true. That's true. But I don't know. I kind of was believing Egwene about, like, they've got the bit in their teeth and they're running with it. Like, they are like, we get to actually exercise power over decisions. No. You step back. I get to make the decision. And that's what they spend hours, like, sorting out their pecking order, basically.
Yeah, basically all the Ajahs want to be in charge of this, right?
Yes.
Because every Ajah says, well, it's our responsibility because it falls under our wheelhouse, because the Grey think it's a negotiation, the Reds think they're dealing with men who can channel, the Blues think it's a cause, well, the Reds aren't involved. The Greens are obviously like, well, it's about battle and fighting, right? Except the Yellow. The Yellow are like, well, it's not about healing, which means we should go because we don't have a stake in the game.
Yeah, which is like the worst argument. I don't have a stake in this game, so I can be objective and separate and tell you what you need. Like, worst argument ever. Hilarious.
This goes on for a couple of pages, and I don't think we need to dig any more into it than we just did.
There's just the great line of argument and counter-argument, wearing the points, chopped so fine that nothing remained and everything had to begin over. That's bureaucracy doing bureaucracy for bureaucracy's sake.
That line and the one at the end of that paragraph, and nothing at all had been decided except that more talk was necessary before anything could be decided.
Yeah. That's all you need to know about this section of the chapter.
Big corporations and government.
I've had a couple of tiny little brushes with local government, and even when it works, by God, is it slow. This is dysfunctional, what is being described here.
Shuriam runs off to report to the Forsaken. I mean, fetch reports on wagon repairs. Yeah, whatever. No, so she's clearly covering to just go off and, like, make her reports for Halima or Delana or whoever else is in charge.
Or she's just literally going to bed.
It's possible. It's possible that she's been up doing dark friendery stuff for quite a while, and that's why she's exhausted.
I mean, I can't stand for very long. I have special little feet that, like, can't do that. But, like, this is talking about hours of just standing in one position.
With meetings,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, like, that's exhausting. She could genuinely just be ready to go to bed. I like Shuriam, despite knowing everything. I just hate that she's a dark friend so much. I want to make her relatable and sympathetic. It's so mean.
To me, she represents the worst of the, like, do anything to get ahead politicking. And, like, I didn't mean to do bad things. I just condemn those people to a horrible experience to make a few more points on my, polls. Right? That level of just, like...
Yeah. No, I'm just still caught in that betrayal that, of, like, but she was the mistress of novices when we got to the tower. How could she? Like, I still am not over it. It's frustrating.
Can we talk about how it's not that uncommon for really evil people to put themselves in a position of power over children?
Yeah.
To cover up the fact that they're really fucking evil? Because if kids like them and they're good with kids, they can't be bad. Scout leaders, priests.
Yeah. So many Behind the Bastards series I could reference. I hate it.
Sure.
And it's like she still has me under her spell. Yep. I need to. It's terrible. I mean, and that's one of the things Masana does. It's one of the things that she's renowned for. Is Masana's children are one of the most destructive forces after.
Right.
Because she runs basically re-education camps for kids where they become like Lord of the Fly Nazi youth, basically. And like they last well into the breaking because they're so young and distributed everywhere. I read this in the companion. They're a real problem for that first century after the breaking. Like Masana's children just running amok. So yeah, getting to the kids is definitely classic evil move. I feel so dirty for defending Shuriam even for a moment.
Yeah, you should. She's awful. Like,
yeah, I do.
She's right there on the front end of recruiting people. She's probably picking out candidates to be corrupted. The one where you influence people in a negative way.
Coerced.
Coerced. Thank you. Yes. That is the word that I was trying to spit out. Wow. Coerced into, being part of the Black Oddjaw.
Yeah, no, she's, and like you said, she's a very real kind of evil, right? There's hundreds to thousands of people in positions of power right now who are like her, whereas there's probably fewer Semirogs in the world than there are Shirioms.
Right.
Semirog is terrifying, but Shiriom is someone you're far more likely to actually be influenced by. Banality of evil, yes, very much, Josh.
It's the difference between Voldemort and the teacher who made him
Umbridge.
Yeah. Voldemort versus Umbridge is very much a Shiriam much. So. Yeah, Shiriam definitely falls in the Umbridge category of evil.
Yeah. Hashtag translates matter. Very much. Moving on.
Somewhere in the night, her headache disappeared.
Somewhere in all that argument, when Halima had to go start killing people, she wasn't able to keep the headache weave going, and now Egwene has her brain back to herself.
But yeah, that's my assumption. Halima's off doing, killing Anya right now.
Yeah, she's killing Anaya and Setagana is the warder's name. I think it's the only time it gets said in the entire books, but it's a very pretty name.
Oh, he is named in death.
Yes, as warders should be. They don't deserve names until they die.
I wonder if perhaps there was a meeting between Shiriam and Halima, and that Anaya saw that. That that's where Shiriam went to go.
That is the question: is why Anaya? Is Anaya in the wrong place at the wrong time, or did she see something she shouldn't have?
So, according to Encyclopedia Watt, Anaya was a close friend of Cabrina.
Oh, right. Cabriana. What's her name? And yeah, I'm forgetting the names, but yes, the three blues that are kind of a little triplet. Karen, Anaya, and Cabriana. Right.
So, and obviously Halima was using her as her reference to get in. So it's possible that Anaya was like, that reference isn't adding up. Let me question you a little bit more. Maybe she got too close to the truth. Maybe she was following Halima. Maybe she oversaw the meeting between Halima and Shiriam. Maybe she heard something she shouldn't have. Right. There's all sorts of reasons that could have happened that night. But my assumption in my headcanon is basically Anaya was like, something's not adding up with this Halima. Let me follow her and find out. And that turned out badly for her.
Yeah, I'd say that between that and Halima knowing that Anaya is the person most likely to blow her cover, that confrontation was probably inevitable from the moment that Cabriana got captured and interrogated. Anaya was kind of like, at what point will you stumble into the murder zone? Because the murder zone is approaching you. But yeah, I would like to think that she was, following Halima, trying to figure something out, talking to her, doing something investigative, and just didn't have an Eben there to tell her that she's channeling Saidin.
I wanted to point out that Elaine sits on a actual real chair without a folding leg for the first time.
Yes, I highlighted that.
It's not where she's taking, but like she got a real chair for her tent for the first time. She's really stabilizing her base of power, especially without Halima there.
Yeah, that visual metaphor. Yep.
Yeah. Jordan's hammering that one in. Yeah.
And Chase is in there, who's, just part of the, cozy making furniture, chiding Egwene for not eating and being too cold. And then Egwene does that, silly thing, which I do all the time, where it's like, oh, no, I'm not in the mood to eat. And then she absolutely inhales every single scrap of food in front of her because it's actually been way too long since she sat down to eat. And however you feel when you start, if it's been that many hours, you will eat everything. And it's a cute human moment from Egwene, who's rapidly becoming just pure icon.
And if I said Elaine, I meant Egwene.
Yeah, I didn't even bother correcting you. It's just such an easy mistake to make. Like, whatever. Everyone knows that we're not talking about Elaine.
Okay. Again, Chesa, I want to make Chesa evil. Right? She's a pretty woman without a touch of gray in her hair. That immediately makes me go, okay, no gray. She's been slowed. Like the gray in the hair is such a reference to the age of the Aes Sedai and all that kind of stuff. I want to make Chesa a channeler.
Oh, yeah. Just a Sparker just right on the edge.
Yeah,
or one of the learners.
But clearly she would have been sensed, right? Like,
yeah.
she's in the middle of the Aes Sedai camp, so there's nothing there.
I bet she could have learned.
But I do think she makes a great Forsaken red herring.
Oh, absolutely.
Messana would be a great, I think she would have been a great candidate for her.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that I think would have been really funny to have like the two Forsaken not getting along.
I mean, that would have been really funny if like they were doing a, what's the play with the two sets of twins? Comedy of Errors. Doing that sort of like ridiculous back and forth where everyone's lying to everyone and no one actually knows the truth except the audience. Like
that would be fun.
That would have been so fun. But no, RJ decided to just put a red herring there, leave that comedic exercise for the fanfic.
Although I do love that she totally senses the male gaze, right?
Yes. I love that she can sense the male gaze coming off of Halima. Like, I don't know what's going on here, but it's wrong. And like part of it is like the uncanny valley thing, which is not always so great, where you're like clocking someone as being off. That often is like a very like harmful thing that people do. But also I love that the creepiness is just Halima's not trying to hide it at all.
No. Although part of me does want to go up to Chase and go, turf.
Exactly. Like a lot of times it's like,
she makes me uneasy, mother. There's something just not right about that Halima. I feel it every time she's around. It's like feeling somebody sneaking up on me or realizing there's a man watching me bathe or ... Like that whole thing in like, if you apply that to someone who is actually transgender would be totally not okay in our society.
It's deeply unokay, but because it's Halima.
Right.
And Halima's absolutely leering at Chesa and thinking depraved, nasty thoughts.
And it isn't someone who wanted to make the transition. It's someone who was forced into a body that's not of their own making.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, no, Chase's danger senses are sparking for the right reason. She is definitely in casual danger from this character. The other thing I wanted to just back up real quick is we get our third iteration of the servant rant. The little servants see you in all of your moods rant. We get our third iteration of that. This is the second time that we've gone over it with Egwene and Chesa. The other time was with Elaine. And I just want to emphasize, this rant would have made sense once. It does not need to come up multiple times.
Right. You notice how I just skipped right over it, right? Like, I didn't even... The one thing I will say is there's that fun little bit of Egwene eating. And I always like to compare that to the scene with Matt where he cleans off the tray.
Yeah, it's
like,
very much that.
Yeah, there's like that little bit where it's like, oh, this is actually really good food. And like... lentil stew and blue vein cheese and olives and brown rolls. Although it's very much the difference between this meal and Matt's meal is there it's all fresh. Here it's all a little shriveled. It's got a little bit of weevils in it. It's like a little decay. We're seeing some decay from the Dark One's influence in the food.
Well, plus she's in a war camp rather than in Tarvalon, right? Matt was in Tarvalon before the coup. Now she's besieging a couped Tarvalon and they're down to like stores instead of having fresh food. But yeah, the next thing that happens is she goes a dreaming.
Yep. So, and she goes into the space between Teleron Riyadh and the real world where dreams live and the bright lights are, right? Like that's the space that only a dreamer can enter. No Angreal can get you in there. It's very much a unique place that we see only Egwene ever really enter. I guess Landfear, I think, is in there too.
Yeah, and she learns how to do this from the Wise Ones. So clearly the Wise Ones hang out here
right,
to talk to each other and stuff.
But you can't, as far as I'm aware, you can't see anybody else hanging out in that area. You can only see dreamers and yourself.
Right. Yeah, she thinks about how she would love to do a Forsaken maneuver to Nynaeve, but it's not worth the trouble right now. And I just love seeing that little fork in the road where it's like, oh yeah, Egwene would make a very effective Forsaken. Mm-hmm. She decided to go that way. Like she's here with the power to do that and the temptation. She's got the means and the motive. She just doesn't choose to follow through. Like she's powerful. You want her on our team. You're really glad she's not playing for the other guys. Azul saying that the fandom named this place the Gap of Infinity.
No, nice.
I had not heard that before, but I love it.
I haven't either. I just call it the Dream Space. But I like the Gap of Infinity.
It's much more poetic.
Yes. There's some stuff about the gap of infinity that we've definitely gone over many times. The way she can touch dreams, talk to people, the way Gawain pulls her in.
Yeah, just the rules of the space get reiterated.
So she tells Elaine to meet me at the usual place.
Which apparently is old Saladar. Well, Saladar proper rather than Saladar the moving concept.
Yeah, we call these the Saladar Aes Sedai, but they're not in Saladar anymore. So the Rebel Aes Sedai, yeah.
Yeah.
So she goes and hangs out in Saladar, right? And she waits for a long time. We get a little more sort of musing on the rules of Teleron Riyadh that we've talked about many, many times. She changes her clothes, she puts the stole on, she takes the stole off, she puts the stole back on, and, she spins herself around.
Yeah, she thinks about domestic animals versus wild animals. Again, just reiterating the rules.
And then Aviendha shows up instead of Elaine.
Yeah, and then she goes through a whole series of garment transformations that recap for us what her current character arc and progression are.
Right. The one thing I wanted to ask about is the inability to use the ring Terran Grial when pregnant. Because as far as we're aware, men can use it, non-channelers can use it. Why is pregnancy a problem for the ring Terran Grial? Because it's not that she can't channel into it, because it's not that kind of Terran Grial, right? You don't need to channel to use it.
I bet it's that she can't get into the right, REM sleep. I bet that pregnancy is disturbing her sleep patterns so much that she can't, make herself go to sleep, even when it's, nighttime and she's tired. That's the only explanation I can think of.
Here's mine. Again, I'm on a Dune kick because I just watched the first Dune movie. You know how in Dune, Paul's mother goes through the Bene Gesserit ceremony while pregnant, and that affects the baby, and the baby comes out as one of the, Bene Gesserit with the full memories. Not just any Bene Gesserit, the Sacred Mother.
Mm-hmm.
I think the ring is trying to pull both Elaine and the fetus into Teleron Riyadh, and it can only transport one person. And so you've got this problem where it's two minds, but one on Grial. And so she can't make it work.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot, that she's able to go to sleep and have dreams, but there's just no Teleron Riyadh being accessed. And even though she knows she went to sleep with the ring and it's even there, and I like that, because that's actually a cool reason for pregnancy to get in the way. Rather than it's because the hormones or whatever. It's no. There's a whole ass other consciousness, and the ring can't differentiate.
Right. So that's my only real theory, because on first read, my assumption, my brain was she can't channel because she's pregnant. She can't use the Terran Grial because she can't channel. But then I was wait, no, that doesn't make sense. This one's a non-channeling one.
Though then Super Skylark asks, is this Robert Jordan's stance on when a fetus is considered alive?
No. Let's not hilarious. Get it. I mean, how many weeks pregnant is Elaine at this point?
Well, she hasn't gotten her new midwife yet, and that happens within the first trimester, I think. I think she gets Melfane before her second trimester starts. But the timeline's so warpy at this point for my comprehension. Yeah,
because she gets she finds out she's pregnant the moment she's pregnant, right? Because of Min's viewing.
Right.
So there's not even a month in there.
Right, yeah. So
of uncertainty. She could be 2 months pregnant at this point, easily.
Yeah. But it also might just be that she couldn't go to sleep into REM sleep. She just can't for whatever reason. But Aviendha can. And
yes.
So Aviendha and Elaine get a reunion that really isn't as much of a reunion as I wanted it to be, but at least we get them on the page together again after their supposedly deep friendship that was made books ago.
That's a good point, because this does not feel like two friends necessarily. I didn't get that. I got this as a very business-like meeting.
Yeah, but exactly. It doesn't feel like a reunion.
For some reason, I was thinking Elaine and Aviendha reuniting. No, of course, Egwene and Aviendha aren't that close. They both,
but they were.
They were. They did train together.
I'm giving Rand to you because we're near sisters, and Aviendha's the reason that I'm protecting him for Elaine is because Egwene, my near sister, asked me to. The bracelet or the necklace of snowflakes was a gift. Like, they were supposedly really good friends, and then this is the first time that they've interacted in months, and they don't even hug. They don't even do one like, it's been so long since I've seen you. Like, they just go right into like a formal tea ceremony and talking business. It's like, you two were really close friends for like 6 months or however long that whole section of the plot went. You were really good friends. Like, where's the hug?
That totally went over my head because they don't act like it here. And they don't act like it. They act like complete strangers. They act like they both know Elaine. They act like friends of friends.
Yeah. She's the one that was the hinge between Avi and Elaine. I mean, ostensibly, kind of, sort of. But like, it's just very weird.
Yeah, I think this might be a Jordan miss, I'll be honest. The only thing I can think of is that maybe with her escalation to Amyrlin, Aviendha doesn't know how to act around her.
And she never apologized to Aviendha for lying to her about being Aes Sedai. She never met her toe to Aviendha about lying to her about being Aes Sedai. That didn't happen, but they don't ever talk about it. And no one ever thinks about it. So it's like, yeah, maybe they're just being awkward, but Jordan doesn't ever put awkwardness in the text. He just puts a lack of any kind of former relationship having meaning, aside from the mention of the necklace. He does mention the necklace to remind you visually, but like, it feels like a miss rather than a deliberate, like, oh no, they're just awkward. They're not awkward.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing chat's saying is that just Egwene doesn't, really see people as friends anymore, just how to be used. She's sort of lost that ability.
Well, but Aviendha should be commenting on that. There should be, like, Avi going in for a hug and being rebuffed, Like, there's no emotional follow-through to what this reunion should have been.
Totally. I'm 100% on board with that. I didn't even think about that when I was reading this chapter. I was just like, oh yeah, they both know Elaine and their relationship. But I think I've commented on that in the past when they were close. If I'm not completely mistaken, back in like Fires of Heaven, I was talking about the fact that like it's weird that they're so close now, but it doesn't feel like they're close later on. It doesn't feel like they keep that friendship. It really does feel like Egwene is isolated at the top, and that she treats everybody, the people from Two Rivers, Aviendha, Rand, like everyone except like Suan gets treated like a subordinate and someone who, is business only.
Yeah. And I mean, in fairness, she literally is giving the cold shoulder to Bode, who she was friends with for a lot longer than she was with Avi. So,
but Bode is part of the White Tower. Bode became part of the power structure that she's at the top of. Aviendha did not.
Yeah. And it's fine if Egwene wants to shut her out. I would just like Aviendha to be a little bit shocked and hurt by that, and to be like, what's going on?
Or Egwene to like actually think about the fact that she's like, oh, I can't hang out with her as like the way I used to because I am Amyrlin.
Right. Even just thinking, I wish that I could have hugged her, but I couldn't.
Right.
One line, and we wouldn't be having this discussion, but instead it's just like, and I think it was literally this podcast all those books ago that made me realize that about this scene. And so I've kind of been like, I've sort of tagged it from years ago to be like, they really don't ever emotionally reconnect. And sure enough, here is that evidence for what that empty feeling is.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, this interaction is just nothing. It makes me almost happy that we didn't get the three boys, reuniting. Because we would have had like Rand acting like Egwene in this situation, and Perrin being hurt and Matt being, sort of bitter.
Yeah. Oof. That's a good point.
Yeah, but I do feel like Jordan mentally completely transferred over the friendship between Egwene and Aviendha to Elaine and Aviendha, and just forgot about that relationship that existed beforehand.
Yeah, it's very weird how like the girlfriends just swap out like interchangeably.
All right, I want to talk about a few specifics of the conversation. Have you heard from Rand or Nynaeve? ? Aviendha, we have heard from neither. Was her tone careful? She has to have known what's going on with them, right?
Uh-huh, exactly. She hasn't heard from them.
From them in particular, but she knows from the wise ones what's going on.
No, she knows from her bond with Rand what's going on.
Okay. Oh, right, of course.
But she hasn't heard anything. And she wasn't given a memo. She just knows that the big thing and Rand are connected, but she wasn't told anything about that explicitly, so...
And then just, Egwene tells her about the alliance with the Black Tower.
And Aviendha says, all of this because of the beacon we felt. She's like, how can I... She tries to actually thread the needle we were criticizing Morel for not threading. Being like, what if I told you that it's not the thing you're afraid of?
Right.
I can't tell you what it is, but it's not the thing you're afraid of.
Right. Right. Aviendha peered into her tea, and if the Shadow Soul possessed no weapon? You know, just hypothetically, what if they weren't the ones who did this? Let's say someone else did it. Let's say someone like Rand. You know, like,
what if this was a good thing? What if the world got made safer, not more dangerous?
And why she just doesn't tell her that Rand is involved, I don't understand.
Because it's not hers to tell, I'm assuming.
And I think we do get this line here. Aviendha was being trained to be a wise one, and garments or no, she was being a wise one, right? Egwene is being the Amyrlin seat, and Aviendha is being a wise one. And what we're seeing is an interaction between a wise one and an Amyrlin seat, not between two old friends. And that's kind of sad.
But necessary from where they're both sitting.
Right.
I get why they're doing it, and it's not a miss for Jordan to do that. It's just emotionally unsatisfying, and the point of reading these books is for emotional catharsis.
Right. And we're getting denied that both from the cleansing and from this old friendship, right? Like, it's very much emotional blue balls, right? Like, it just,
yes.
Give me some release. Let me enjoy the fact that these are my friends and characters who are achieving amazing things, right? Going into the end of the world. Like, she is becoming Amyrlin's seat, becoming a wise one, cleansing the taint, right? All of these things are supposed to be victories, and the emotional impact of them feels like it is undercut in this book. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's hard to read sometimes. Yeah.
There's also some fun Two Rivers slut shaming. That's fun. With the hilarious line, Elaine surely had the best midwife in Caemlyn. This is before Melfane gets brought into the picture. And it's like, she does not have the best midwife in Caemlyn at all. She will, but she doesn't.
No.
This is just her being like, I'm not going to think about the fact that my best friend banged one of my other friends. It's just her being like, no, I'm not going to think about my friend and her pregnancy because she's got doctors. She's fine.
Oh, okay. That level of like, I don't need to worry about it because she's got the best people.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause she wants to get into like, wait, is it going to be a boy and a girl? Like, how does she has twins? And then she's like, no, I'm not thinking about it. She's got doctors. I don't need to think about it.
Because she's like, oh, twins can cause complications, whatever. Not a big deal. I'm sure she'll be fine.
Yeah, it's a not my circus, not my monkey sort of brush off rather than that spoiled bitch who doesn't ever show me the dark side of her life. It's not that criticism, although it's a valid criticism in general, and it does get leveled at Elaine by other characters. That's not what's happening here.
I was more talking about the way Jordan loves to, prove his characters wrong by like being like, oh, you think this thing is true? Guess what? The opposite is true.
There's one woman in all of Caemlyn who knows how to deal with a pregnant woman, and she's not currently invoked yet, and it's so weird.
That I don't get. I also think that's very much a Jordan writing as a man, because like no group of women would have that much bad advice for a queen.
Yeah, and then they all just fold when one weird lady from the city comes in. Like, no. The weird crank that nobody agrees with is not the person who suddenly whips everyone into shape. Like, it's, yeah. Egwene surely has the best paternalistic writing of pregnancy that money can buy.
We get emphasis that the hole is 3 miles across, but that's just, from the report that she got in the last chapter. So she's just repeating that. It's not new information.
Yeah. And then we go to the implications of this beyond Shadar Logoth, which is that sisters are no longer going to see Caemlyn as off limits if they're sending an embassy to the Black Tower, which is on the edges of Caemlyn. Like, that's the longer term Andoran political implications beyond all the like Forsaken weapon, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you've had a respite from sisters coming to Caemlyn. That's about to end.
So is that the message that Egwene basically was trying to send? Like, besides summarizing everything that's happened, was basically like saying, you're going to have some sisters on your doorstep, be ready?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's the entire point of the meeting, as far as I can tell. And then we get a bunch of, like, stepping around the sea folk situation, and it literally, Egwene thinks that, well, surely Aviendha would have said something if there was anything Egwene should know about. 2 paragraphs later, I sleep well, Egwene lied. It's like, you're expecting these women to tell you the truth, and then you immediately turn around and lie when they ask you, how are you? Are you sleeping well? You just straight up lie to them, and you have the audacity to think that they're telling you the truth? That they're telling you everything? Not
to mention, this is after her rant about how she needs to, swear the oaths and how important that is, that she shouldn't be lying because she's an Aes Sedai, and how, like, the oaths are what make an Aes Sedai and she's living by them. And then she just casually lies to Aviendha here? Like, not even an important lie.
Yeah, lies to her friend. What's Aviendha going to do? Tell her to sleep? It's not like there's a consequence to her knowing the truth. She's not going to go to Egwene's political enemies and say, you know what Egwene's actually like. That's not who Aviendha is at all. Like, she doesn't have access to these people.
Yeah, the quote is, I sleep well, Egwene lied. There's no question. That's a lie, right? Like, Jordan doesn't usually he, like, lets us interpret, be like, oh, I sleep well, and then later she yawns or something, right? And we can interpret that as a lie.
Yeah, and Aviendha knows she's lying and is like, why don't you go get some sleep? And Egwene's like, I'm only using myself as hard as I need to. And it's like, you're going into burnout. That's what you're doing. Your body is shutting down because you're going into burnout.
So I think you use yourself too hard.
She was not using herself too hard, only as hard as she needed to. Fuck off, Egwene.
Right.
It's a terrible thing to be teaching me as a teenager. Please don't do that.
And then she slipped back into her body and discovered that it was sound asleep. That did not mean that she was asleep. She let herself slip only far enough under for dreams to come. So it's like, yeah, she's not actually fully sleeping.
Yeah.
She's like, I need sleep. You're right. But I'm not going to fully sleep.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get rest the way I need it.
It just makes me so mad. This is why she makes such bad decisions regarding Gawain and what she does with her life, ultimately, and her death, is because she wasn't getting any sleep for like 6 months before that.
How much of that do you think is Halima's influence? How do you think Halima's forcing her to push herself to the ragged edge every single day?
I mean, for a period of time, yes, but I think that Egwene's own drive is the reason it's happening.
Is doing that?
Halima's just putting such incredible obstacles in the way that Egwene has to dig real deep in order to do what Egwene's going to do.
Right, Egwene has to do everything she was going to do with a headache.
Right, and it's like, seriously, I'm so mad at Egwene for this because I fucking idolized her. And like, growing up and trying to come to terms with my own limitations, she's a terrible role model.
Yeah.
Like, try to be like Egwene is not good advice.
Limitations? I don't have limitations. No, it's terrible advice. It's absolutely awful. It's
inspiring and terrifying, and it hurts me.
There's this little leather-bound book that she keeps her notes, her dream journal in. That never really comes up again, as far as I can tell. Ever. Yeah, it would be really nice to have, like, someone discover that and like realize, oh, cool, let me read all these dreams. Wow, those mean something to me. Let me alter my behavior based on these dreams that I'm reading.
I mean, they could still find it in the Fourth Age and power up a religion.
Sure.
The holy dreams that were revealed to the
prophet. From the great Egwene.
Yeah.
The Amarylline Seat. Last Amarylline Seat of the Third Age.
Okay, Texas Blade is making a good point in chat that the end of the world is a reason to pull all-nighters. I don't care. It was still a bad message for me to learn.
See, that's where I disagree, right? The end of the world, guess what? All-nighters don't make you more productive. They don't make you better at what you're doing. They don't help, right? They make you worse at what you're trying to get done.
It's true.
I work with too many people who think they can get away with 5 hours of sleep a night, and then they come in the next day and are useless and create more problems than it. And they're like, well, no, that's cool, man. I just function totally fine. I'm like, no, you don't. You think you do. You do not function well on that amount of sleep. And part of not getting enough sleep is thinking that you function well. Like you are so tired, you don't realize how tired and unfunctional you actually are. That's a small dig at my coworkers if they're ever discover this. Get sleep. Get enough sleep. Stop showing up. I was going to say hungover, but sleep hungover.
Yeah. She goes to sleep and has a really hilariously cringy line about Gawain. She's going to marry him and make love to him until he cried for mercy. Which I can't not chuckle at, even though it's just so cringe.
Do they ever sleep together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they get married. They get properly married. They have a honeymoon during the apocalypse.
They just never seem to like each other.
No, they don't spend any time on page liking each other after this. It's purely fantasies in their heads.
And again, that's because, this is where Egwene drives me nuts, but she treats everybody like she's the Amerlin. And has completely cut off any, like, we see it here with Aviendha, we see it with Rand, and we even see it with Gawain, right? She cuts off any trust or faith. She doesn't share anything with him. He's completely in the dark about her plans, right? Like, we really get on Gawain about how awful he is, because he is awful. I'm not going to excuse him for that. But Egwene, for the position she puts him in, should trust him way more.
Yep. But there's many more dreams to talk about that are way more fun than that.
Way more fun. And these are just the dreams that she has because she's a young girl in love and stressed, right? Like
Right, yeah.
All these rolling things up a hill. Like, I was trying to read them and do they represent anything? And no, I really do think they're just absolutely
just horny and stressy dreams. Yeah, she's literally has a dream of being the character of Sisyphus. How do you even say it? I don't know how to say Sisyphean task, but Sisyphus?
Right. No, Sisyphus. You got that right.
Yeah. So she just has a dream of being that. She has a Greek god dream. Or not god, but, Greek parable dream. But yeah, it's all just stress dreams. And then we get the discovery of guns.
Yes. Do you mind if I read this whole vision?
Please do.
Matt stood on a village green playing at bowls. The thatched roofed houses were vague in the manner of dreams. Sometimes the roofs were slate, sometimes the houses seemed of stone, sometimes wood. But he was sharp and clear, dressed in a fine green coat and that wide-brimmed black hat, just as he had been the day he rode into Saladar. There was not another human being in sight. Rubbing the ball between his hands, he took a short run and casually rolled it across the smooth grass. All 9 pins fell, scattered as if they had been kicked. Matt turned and picked up another ball, and the pins were back upright. No, there was a fresh set of pins. The old still lay where they had fallen. He hurled the ball again, a lazy, underhanded bowl, and Egwene wanted to scream. The pins were not turned pieces of wood. They were men, standing there watching the ball roll towards them. None moved until the ball sent them flying. Matt turned to pick up another ball, and there were more new pins, new men standing in orderly formation among the men lying sprawled on the ground as if dead. No, they were dead. Unconcerned, Matt bowled.
It's so good. Unconcerned Matt bowled is just so ominous.
It is very ominous. The bowling, the balls obviously represent cannonballs or musket balls. The men dying. He's just casual, and it doesn't take any effort. You just casually kill these men, and the future will change. There's a lot of implications that the future is drastically affected by the discovery of gunpowder and guns. Yeah,
Brigida says that line of the world just changed. I've never seen anything like this. This is different. And yeah, it's cannons.
Also, the phrase rubbing the ball between his hands, fantastic. Thank you, Jordan. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's very traditional 9-pin bowling that we play.
Yeah, totally. Really, really easy to see and hear it. You hear that of doing, a strike. And it's really fun too, because she thinks about the illuminators and she's like, oh yeah, there's there's illuminators all over the place. There's that one that Matt met and that one that Elaine and Nynaeve met. He could find one anywhere. It's the same woman. It's the same woman.
Well, does she say Matt met one or that? Oh yeah, Matt had met an illuminator once. That's right. Yeah. Because that's the one he saved in the totally.
Yeah,
yep. Yeah. It's all this. Turns out there's actually
there is one lone illuminator in this world,
and the Sean Chan made sure of that.
Yeah, I love Eludra so much. She's the best. She's going to have so many heirs that she's going to be the mother of the resistance in so many ways. And even if she never has a biological child, because of the guns and her plans, like she's the mother of the resistance for the Fourth Age.
Resistance to what?
The Shan-Shan.
Oh, but aren't the Shan-Shan the ones who have the guns, according to Aviendha's vision?
Well, there's a lot to change between here. The Aviendha's vision is going to shatter into 1,000 pieces because she had it.
Agreed. Yeah, anyone who says Aviendha's vision is the way the future turns out is just wrong, right? Like,
absolutely not.
Yeah, absolutely not.
That's a computer model spinning forward based on current conditions and showing her information that will allow her to make some course corrections that make the model completely broken. Because the model doesn't even make sense. There's so many holes in that future because it's just a computer simulator that's designed to give you some important insights into yourself. And that's what she gets. So it's fine. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, it is just straight up nonsense. I agree.
Yeah, she put some terms into a generative AI thing and it spat out some results and she believed it. Like, the hands were weird. We could all tell the hands are weird. The hands are weird.
Well, and it's also, it deliberately is creating warnings so you can change the future, right? It is saying, if you don't change anything, this is what could happen. Change something. And she does.
Yeah, and it spirals out specifically from her concerns, right?
Yeah,
it is specifically centered on what she's actively worried about in this moment. So the farther into the future you go, the more abstract and weird the results are, and the closer you get to present time, the more it's like, hey, maybe this is the solution in your subconscious to the problem you're worrying over. It's just drugs, man.
I like the Smine is saying the dream version of ChatGPT. Yeah.
Exactly. Like this Terran Grial, who knows what it was built to do, but clearly it's running a new program for the first time with her. It's a very fun vision, but the idea that it reflects reality in anything but the broadest of strokes, and that the Shan-Shan versus the Aiel is going to be the issue of the Fourth Age, yes, that much is true, but all the implications are completely irrational, the way that it spins them out.
So basically, Aviendha created a bit overflow issue so that the first bit switched signs, and so instead of the past, it shows the future.
Yeah, totally. And like, she's lucky that she managed to have a personally profound and meaningful experience that will help guide the Aiel into the Fourth Age. She's very lucky that that's the outcome, but I don't think it had to be that. I think that's just the best case scenario.
Dream number 2?
Yeah, dream number 2, Egwene. She was struggling up a narrow, rocky path along the face of a towering cliff. Clouds surrounded her, hiding the ground below and the crest above, yet she knew that both were very far away. She had to place her feet very carefully. The path was a cracked ledge barely wide enough for her to stand on, with one shoulder pressed against the cliff, a ledge littered with stones as large as her fist that could turn under a misplaced step and send her hurtling over the edge. It almost seemed this was like the dreams of pushing millstones and pulling carts, yet she knew it was a true dream. Abruptly, the ledge dropped away from under her with a crack of crumbling stone, and she caught frantically at the cliff, fingers scrabbling to find a hold. Her fingertips slid into a tiny crevice, and her fall stopped with a jolt that wrenched her arms. Feet dangling into the clouds, she listened to the falling stone crash against the ground until the sound faded to nothing without the stone ever hitting the ground. Dimly, she could see the broken ledge to her left. 10 feet away, it might as well have been a mile off for all the chance she had of reaching it. In the other direction, the mists hid whatever remained of the path, but she thought it had to be further away still. There was no strength in her arms. She could not pull herself up, only hang there by her fingertips until she fell. The edge of the crevice seemed as sharp as a knife under her fingers. Suddenly, a woman appeared, clambering down the sheer side of the cliff out of the clouds, making her way as deftly as if she were walking downstairs. There was a sword strapped to her back. Her face wavered, never settling clearly, but the sword seemed as solid as the stone. The woman reached Egwene's level and held out one hand. "We can reach the top together," she said in a familiar, drawling accent. It's got to be Egwene, right?
Oh, yeah, of course it's Egwene, right?
Yeah, the sword, the accent, the helping Egwene get through an absolutely impossible situation. It's Egwene in the aftermath of Gawain's death.
Right. 100%. And again, something that I feel like Brandon could have done a better job of expanding on. It does feel a little shoehorned in.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Thank you, Texas Blade. It's Lylwyn at that point, not Egwene.
Yeah.
I wonder if he meant for that to be said with sort of like a Welsh kind of like Lylwyn.
Lylwyn. I mean, you got Bael Domon doing as he do be Lylwyn, you know, like there's a little combo there.
But yeah, she rejects the dream as firmly as she ultimately rejects the second chance at life that Egwene gives her. She does accept the Sean Chance help for like 12 hours or so.
Right.
But then she literally opens up a gateway, releases the bond, and uses air to shove Egwene through the gateway, literally pushing her away and allowing her to die.
Yeah, I would have loved to see Egwene actually save Egwene as opposed to be her warder and do absolutely nothing.
All she did was staunch the bleeding for a few minutes, right? Like,
yeah.
She just sort of plugged the hole that like had magically been ripped in Egwene's brain by the warder bond. But like, she lost her husband. You can't just bond a random soldier from the enemy and have that emotional pain go away. Like, it's ridiculous. And I mean, she even realizes partway through that like, oh, she thought this would work and it isn't going to. But I would have loved to see Egwene just like lock her in a padded room until the battle was over. You know, like a warder should. And Lylwyn's got her own warder. It would have been the best warder for the Amyrlin ever. A warder with a warder. Because Domon is Lylwyn's warder. You know, bond or no bond. Like, he's a brick shit house that no one's getting past. Would have been amazing.
And I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think Matt would have been a much better... if you have to kill one of the main characters, Matt would have been a better one to kill off at the end. Right? The lazy man who runs into the burning building to save the children.
It was set up in book 2.
It was. Yep.
Literally set up in book 2.
And also then you get around the whole, you know, him having to deal with being the emperor of a slaver nation, right? Like, it leaves a tainted flavor in the back of my throat when I think about Matt being the head of that empire.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Egwene and Lylwyn sailing off into the sunset, and Matt dead as a doornail. So much better.
You're like, no! But yeah, I mean, I think thematically it works better. You know, and if you need him, bring him back through the horn somehow. Right? Like,
through the porn? What?
The horn of Valir.
Oh, I heard porn and I was like, I know he's raunchy, but
yeah, not what I said.
The tape will. Well, I'll include you just saying porn.
Everyone says porn. Okay, I guess we'll see who's right. Play the tape.
Yep.
Through the porn somehow. Porn.
Okay. Next dream. Oh, the Sean Chain attack is the next dream.
Yes, and I actually really like this vision.
Yeah, it's very cool. Do you want to read it or should I read it?
She was climbing another path along a cliff shrouded in clouds, but this was a broad ledge of smoothly paved white stone, and there were no rocks underfoot. The cliff itself was chalky white and as smooth as if polished. Despite the clouds, the pale stone almost gleamed. She climbed quickly and soon realized that the ledge was spiraling around. The cliff was actually a spire. No sooner did that thought occur than she was standing at the top of it, a flat, polished disc walled by mist. Not quite flat, though. A small white plinth stood centered in that circle, supporting an oil lamp made of clear glass. The flame on that lamp burned bright and steady, without flickering. It was white, too. Suddenly, a pair of birds flashed out of the mist, 2 ravens black as night. Streaking across the spire top, they struck the lamp and flew on without so much a pause. The lamp spun and wobbled, dancing around atop the plinth, flinging off droplets of oil. Some of those drops caught fire in midair and vanished. Others fell around the short column, each supporting a tiny, flickering white flame, and the lamp continued to wobble on the edge of falling.
It's so good. Love his dream writing.
Okay, so this is one where I think every element has like an analogy to it, and I kind of want to go through it in a little more detail, because I actually feel like this is one of the least examined dreams, right? Because everyone's like, oh yeah, we know what it is. It's the attack. But I want to talk about specifically what each element of this dream refers to in the attack.
Let's go. This is what Watt Spoilers does best.
So she starts off climbing this cliff, right? This white path, smooth path, getting up to the top. And to me, that's her ascension to becoming Amerlin.
That's climbing the White Tower in terms of her political rise.
Right. Or really getting to the White Tower, right? Because the White Tower to me is that plinth on the top.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's her path to the tower. But yeah, it's all the smooth white stones. It's big and broad. It's easy to walk up. It's like her path into this moment has been very predictable ever since she decided she wanted to be Aes Sedai.
And the flame on that lamp burns bright and steady. That's the one power, right? It's the power of the Aes Sedai.
Right, so the plinth is the tower, and then the flame at the top is like the Aes Sedai as embodied by the Amerlin seat, the flame of Tarvalon.
Suddenly a pair of birds flashed out of the mist, 2 ravens as black as night. Those ravens in this case represent Seanchan.
Right, who do happen to come by winged creatures.
Right, so they almost represent the Rockin as much as the ravens that are the representation of the Seanchan.
Yeah. I mean, I think that probably this dream would have used ravens flying in and hitting it regardless of how the attack was carried out. The symbology of the Seanchan is too good. But, like, it does so happen that they literally come in on winged beasts and smack into the tower and hurt it very badly.
Right. Really accurate there. We do have to wonder, the ravens, the 2 ravens could be memory and thought, the ones that Matt has on his...
Yeah, but they're the Seanchan ones, which I don't think that those are meant to be just 2 ravens always in the Imperial iconography. It's just ravens in general. In this case, it's 2 for some reason. I don't know why 2 specifically. Like, why couldn't just 1 raven have come out?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Maybe it's like the one raven is for the attack and the other raven is for the theft of Elida and traveling or something. Like, there's layers to what the attack means. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't... Because Seanchan doesn't put any emphasis on 2 ravens in particular.
No. Other than on each shoulder, right? Don't they have, like, a tower on each shoulder or ravens on each shoulder? Or is that a tower and a raven?
Yeah, I thought it was a tower and raven icon together on one shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why there's 2. Maybe he just liked the symbology of making it like Matt's spear. And, like, is it thought and memory? Or is it Seanchan? Even though like, it's clearly... I don't know. I agree, Charmy. It feels correct for there to be 2, but like it does make you want to think, is it thought and memory, which is clearly wrong.
All right. The lamp spun and wobbled. Obviously, the impact of the attack on the White Tower.
Yeah, the loss of their leadership.
Flinging off droplets of oil. So that's obviously losing Aes Sedai. Some of those drops caught fire in midair and vanished. So I think that's the deaths that occur during the attack. Others fell around the short column, each supporting a tiny flickering white flame. So I think those are the ones who are captured, or basically they're lost to the White Tower. They still exist outside the White Tower, but they are no longer part of it.
Agreed. And the lamp continued to wobble on the edge of falling because its future is very uncertain. Like right up until the moment she raises her hand to initiate the attack, it is uncertain what's going to happen. And then she wakes up with the profound realization of actually knowing one of her dreams for the first time in her career since book 2 of being told she's a dreamer. She finally knows! One!
Right before the one person that she wants to talk to about dreaming is killed.
Now that's a coincidence. Oh, chat is suggesting maybe the second raven is the blood knives.
That they're left behind? Yeah, but the ravens continue on without pausing, right? So the dropping them off thing doesn't really work for me.
Yeah. The best I can think is that there's 2 layers to the attack. The initial attack and then implications / suicide troops. Or he just liked it visually.
Yeah. Or, he came up with an analogy, not exactly sure how the battle would be written. And
that's also true.
Yeah.
That's also very true.
It's very close for this, what actually happens and what this vision are very, very close in terms of events, right? The flying creature coming in, hitting it, the disruption, the deaths, the capturing, all that is very accurate to me. As accurate as any of the dreams are.
Yeah. And the fact that she knows. So Anaya just died, like 10 minutes ago. I'm going to choose to believe that as Anaya's soul was like melding back into the great pool of life, that she was able to do how Egwene does like, can't we be a hero too to Rand as she dies? I want to think that Anaya like put a little like poof of like extra oomph into Egwene's brain to be like, you're gonna get one dream from me. I always believed in you, girl. You got this. As she's going back into the ether.
Okay.
I'm going to choose to believe that.
I think it's just Jordan's sense of timing and irony of like, you got a vision. Guess what? The person who said you're a dreamer is dead.
That's probably more likely. But I'm going to headcanon how I damn please. But yeah, Halima literally walks in at that moment and like does a little mustache twirling in the dark before she goes to bed because she's evil.
She sounded wound up tight, almost excited. Yeah, because she just murdered. And that gets her off. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting killing someone with the power. I got a boner now.
Yep.
Halima could do as she wished, of course, but Egwene was still disappointed. Oh my god, Egwene. Stuff it.
She was fairly certain that Halima had found herself company, if not for the whole night.
Yeah, the company of murdering people.
That's how excited Halima is. Yeah.
She must have gotten railed.
She must have gotten nailed. Yep. Nope. She's got to do some murder.
Yeah. And she judges her for sleeping with a person, but, you know, would never dream that she might have just murdered two people.
And then there's this line, she said nothing very determinately. Halima was not her servant. She had no right to set standards for the woman. You are the Amerlin seat. She is sleeping in your tent. You have every right to set standards for her if you want to. I think that's entirely just a little bit of compulsion that Halima's like, yeah, you don't tell me what to do.
Yeah, I completely agree, because she felt she had the right to set standards for Barrelane when she was just an apprentice / novice accepted. Like, it's ridiculous that she should, first of all, that she should be judging Halima at all, but that she should be giving Halima a pass is so, yeah, it's very indicative of some clumsy but effective compulsion. I mean, she's correct. She has no right to set standards for the woman, aside from the part where she's allowing her into her personal space. But, like, yeah. You should be setting standards for her. You're super judgy about these things, and you're the Amerlin. It's literally your job. You're the Pope.
Right. And this is someone you're letting into your personal space. They're sleeping with in the same tent as you. Like, you could just say, don't sleep in my tent unless you're going to blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, she literally has every right to set standards for this person. And yet she doesn't. Like, yeah, compulsion. So then Nisao comes in and shoos everyone else out so she can talk to Egwene privately because she's bringing the news of Halima's murders.
Which will come in right behind Halima herself.
And we get this whole story about how, you know, maybe like it looks like they just died of poisoning, you know, or like, you know, of accidental poisoning of bad mushrooms, which is like obviously totally a thing. Always triple check your mushroom identification before you eat them, please. But because everyone's on edge, Nisao decided to test for resonance just because she was feeling paranoid, and she found blatant evidence. She turned on that UV light, and suddenly there was blood splatters everywhere.
Right.
Suddenly it's a crime scene rather than a case of badly preserved food.
And how many people have died this way in the past? Right, because Halima's been killing people, right? She took out the two servants. Besides Chesa, the spies for Ramonda and Lelaine. Yeah,
Mary and Salam.
So clearly other people, well, they didn't have the bodies then. I guess that's the difference.
The bodies wouldn't be discovered until spring when the snow melted.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's also the man whose arm she broke.
Sure, yeah, they could test the resonance on that, yeah.
Who knows how many men she might have killed for fun, for sport. Because they're just soldiers or workmen or whatever. Like, who knows how many unsolved murders existed? No one even knew were murders because people just wander away sometimes.
And she has the impunity to use the male half of the one power and do whatever she wants. No one can sense that.
Yep. She could be walking around doing a million things at once in the middle of the camp and no one would know. Because everyone's getting more and more paranoid, now they're taking unreasonable steps, like checking for male resonance on a thing where why would you expect there to be a man channeling? Oh, shit, there's a man channeling. Like,
right.
Sometimes you gotta check for the unexpected, just to make sure. Just cover your bases.
And they completely missed the fact that there's someone disguised as a woman who's channeling. They're trying to figure out which man is channeling Saidin, when in fact it's a woman channeling Saidin, right? And that throws them way off. And this goes back to the whole, Eben Hopwell, who, we just confirmed was dead in the prologue to this. She's channeling Saidin, right? Halima is the one who killed Eben. That's sort of a little bit of a seeing her having killed Anaya, and in the beginning of this episode, watching her have killed Eben, it's like, damn, I don't like her very much right now.
No, she's creepy and she's murdering all the cool characters. So yeah, Egwene basically assigns Nisao to figure out why Anaya was killed, and this is sort of a thing that Nisao was on for a long time. She ends up bringing it to Ramonda after Egwene gets captured, because she has to take her reporting to somebody. And that's kind of what Nisao does for the next little while.
Yeah, do you have anything on Nisao? She seems like a pretty one of those Aes Sedai who's in a lot of scenes but never doing anything herself. Yeah,
she's adjacent to a lot of stuff, and she's fine, I guess. She's one of those Aes Sedai where she's fine, I guess.
Yeah, she's in the Sheriam 6, and I guess it looks like she's ousted from the inner circle in the beginning of Knife of Dreams.
Yeah, she's involved with Morel and saving Lan.
Okay.
She's a yellow who's interested in illnesses of the mind that the power can't touch.
Well, and she ends up in that embassy to the Black Tower that we talked about, where they go, we assume they bond some of them, we assume they fight in the last battle, but we never get any further information on, like, that group of people, that group of Aes Sedai.
Yeah. So she's just kind of around. Mm-hmm. But she does hold on to this mission. She's like a little bulldog. She gets this in her teeth, and she doesn't let it go. She takes it to Ramonda later. Doesn't really get rewarded for it, but she's loyal to the cause. Nisao's mouth opened and closed. If I must, I must, she muttered, only half under her breath. She was not really suited to keeping deep secrets, and she knew it. The last she had tried to keep had led directly to her having to swear fealty to Egwene. Will this put a stop to talk about an agreement with the Black Tower? I doubt it, Egwene said wearily. Light, how could she be weary already? The sun was not fully up yet. Either way, I think it is going to be another very long day. And the best she could find to hope for in it was that she could make it to another night without a headache.
Well, and it helps when she gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
Soon.
Getting kidnapped is like such a vacation for her.
Right? All she has to deal with is the spanking.
I mean, she is getting beaten, bruised on a daily basis and then on multiple times a day basis. But that's how bad Halima and the Hall are, that it's a vacation for her to only be getting beaten, because she gets to actually sleep in between. I mean, she spends all her time until they run her out, so it's not really sleeping. But, yeah. I am really ready for her to get captured so she can get out of this plot.
Yep. Same.
All right, well, that was a 2-hour recording, because we actually enjoyed ourselves.
Yeah, and next week we get to do some subplot dark friendery. And that's going to be fun, because that's a little getting away from our main characters and just Alviar and other good stuff. Yeah, I can't wait for that.
And no more of Winter's Heart. Our next recording, we aren't going to have that little segment at the beginning. It's over.
Yeah, because it's over. It's over. Like, we've discovered the cleansing has happened. We have finished Winter's Heart, which is just absolutely kind of like we finished Winter's Heart once, but now we're actually finishing Winter's Heart. I kind of want we usually take have some sort of celebration or, after we finish each book. And I feel like we need to do that now, but we kind of already took that break.
We did a tangents.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
We did a winter's tangent. Like, we just completely disrespected the sanctity of the placement of the last chapter.
You know what, Jordan? Write it in order next time, and we won't disrespect the sanctity of your books.
I'm just saying, we like things in chronological order.
And we just took a break, so for BlotCon.
Yeah, that was a long break. I'm really sorry, guys. Our download statistics definitely showed this. It went flat for a few weeks there because there was no new releases.
Yeah, there was no that. Sorry about that, but life happens.
When we get to the end of Crossroads, we'll keep on recording, and we'll just take a little tiny pause in the releasing again, and we're just gonna stay ahead. That's what we're doing. Staying ahead. I'm not doing this less than a week turnaround nonsense anymore. I'm staying ahead.
It is stressful as an editor to try and get it out and be like, oh, I don't, because you like to edit a certain time every week, right? So it's hard.
Yeah, because like you were saying with your afternoon getting screwed up with Never coming home at the wrong time, like I have enough podcast projects bouncing around that they kind of all have to get certain tasks done at certain parts of the week in order for me to not be scrambling. I'm building myself quite the work schedule with all these things. Yeah, so I need to not have any little disturbance in that turn into a publishing drop because the audience doesn't like it when you stop publishing.
And yeah, the week is actually a short time to turn it around. And it feels like a long time because we're so used to 2-day turnaround time.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Because TVAD usually comes out, 3 days after they record it, right?
Yeah, well, they have switched to recording it on Sundays. So I get the notification that there's stuff for me late on Sunday night. I edit on Monday, and then they release on Tuesday. That's
did they used to record on Mondays?
Yeah, they used to record early on Mondays, but they've now shifted it all the way to Sunday night, which is really nice for me as the editor. But yeah, it's I like having more lead time than that.
Yeah. No, lead time is better. It makes it much easier to edit when you have time to edit.
And yesterday I got screwed up because my computer, my ability to download their files got screwed up for reasons that are too nitpicky to get into. But I couldn't download their files until mid-afternoon. And I couldn't work on them properly until mid-afternoon. And then I had IRL stuff to do, so I wasn't actually able to finish their episode and get it to them until today. Because, everything is just too tightly ordered, and one little disturbance just knocks the entire thing out of kilter. But then, they aren't paying me enough to worry about it, so it's fine.
No. Yeah, you should cut that out.
It's just they pay me hobbyist wages for their hobby project. They only record every other week. Sometimes they get their stuff to me late. It's just there's the level of commitment to it has to be done by this certain day isn't super high. There's flexibility there in a way that I would like to build my business to where I don't need that flexibility because everything is already quilted together ahead of time well enough. Yeah, two-day turnaround time is it's a big demand.
Yeah, it is.
3-week turnaround is much better. I still tend to get them done within a week. It just allows me to have shit come up and not fuck everything instantly. Right.
If you really need to edit 2 at once.
Yeah, but yeah, I get through episodes and, well, I don't know exactly what my ratio is. I'm approaching 1-to-1 sometimes, and I really hit my groove. I can approach a 1-to-1, but I don't hit my groove most of the time, so.
Yeah.
It's probably closer to 2-to-1.
I always said when I'm actively editing, I can almost edit as fast as the 1-to-1, right? But I have to be focused, and I can only do that for 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
And then I lose it. So then if you actually look at how long it takes me to edit, realistically, it's probably about a 3-to-1 between sitting down, getting my tea, settling in, doing the work, getting up to pee, checking my email, doing all that kind of stuff,
I'm trying really hard to train myself to not multitask so that way I can have a more compressed work session and actually feel like I'm hitting that 2-to-1 or 1-to-1 kind of space. Because if I get distracted with Discord, it's like, well, I have no idea how long I actually spent working.
Right. Well, and what I'd try and do is maybe do like a half an hour of editing and then go do something else.
Yeah, sure.
And like, and stop editing, right? I'm not being distracted, but and then I'd be like, oh, it's about a 1-to-1, but it's spread over 3 hours while I'm doing other things as well.
Yeah, which I'm trying really hard not to do that, but...
Well, I definitely struggle to get it done sometimes. I'd spend days sitting around not editing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, speaking of things you haven't been keeping up on, you hear about Zoom's new terms of service?
Oh, God, no. I mean, I said yes to them, but I didn't actually, read them or pay attention to them.
Yeah, I've heard from one page that I've been following forever on Facebook. It's just this one person writing like a blog kind of thing. It basically says that they could use your data for AI training, but they won't. But they could. Or something like that. It was fucking legalese, but it was like... This page I've been following forever and whose takes I generally trust was like, this is really troubling and nobody, like, this is going to fuck up a shit ton of privacy stuff and AI training and like this. Zoom has some explaining to do. So
I think companies are just putting the AI training boilerplate in their agreements just so they can do what they want with it. They just don't. Yeah.
That would be my gut instinct as well, is like, this is the broad normalization at a boilerplate level of like, no, but like, you just like we've always signed up for the block of text TOS, right? They're just adding a new block because AI, and like, that's maybe not a great
No, I mean, but it's not like they haven't done whatever they wanted with our data this whole time anyway. So,
well, I mean, especially as podcasters, but like, there's a lot of things that are not podcasts that go through Zoom where this has some very problematic implications.
Oh,
we are sort of like, but
totally. Yeah, no, it's the fact that businesses do a lot of business through Zoom, and that has privacy and non-disclosure issues, and I mean, there's all sorts of stuff for like
telehealth.
Oh yeah,
therapy over Zoom. Like, that is a problem.
As much as people shit on Apple, they do end-to-end encryption well. They really do make sure that they can't decrypt your shit. Like, you really have to be on one. Now, it means that sometimes technical problems pop up that can't be fixed. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes, Apple's stuff can be a little buggier because they're like, yeah, we can't do anything about it. You lost that data. But at the same time, I'm kind of happy, like, they can't access it. So. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's always going to be trade-offs.
Right.
Like, it's such a false argument when it's like, well, yeah, but there's a flaw. And it's like, I would expect there to be a flaw. The question is, how does the flaw stack up against the benefits?
Well, what really gets me is when the government says, oh, we want a backdoor into the end-to-end encryption for the good guys, but we don't want the bad guys to have access to it. That's not how that works. Like, if you put it in a back door,
the fox does not get to guard the hen house like that.
Once you put it in the back door's there, and anyone can get into it. You'll never figure out a way to keep people out.
Yeah, that's a terrible argument.
But it's not a terrible argument. The fact that we have
folding chairs to the head. I picked the strangest time to rejoin TikTok.
I don't get the reference, but
you don't?
No.
Oh my God! Alabama boat brawl.
Oh, okay, yeah. Now I get the reference.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a truly beautiful, glorious thing. And I just had to throw in a timely reference so we can all know when this episode was recorded.
Twitter is now X. That's another timely reference.
Oh, no, it's not. It just is hallucinating. It's just having a really bad dream. It's still Twitter.
Yeah, it is still Twitter. You still tweet. It's still at twitter.com. Yeah.
I'm not calling it X. That's dumb as hell.
Yep. I've often, so I joined Twitter. I made a personal account so I could like not do Wheel of Time stuff. right before it became X, and it was just the worst timing. You know, it's like if I join a platform, chances are it's going down the tubes.
That's literally happened to me so many times. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's a real shame about Twitter. But, you know, Twitter of Time is still there, kind of, but I do see less engagement. And I don't want to open up the app. That stupid black X makes me not want to tap on it. That's it. Like, I just don't want to even engage anymore.
Yeah, I never understood Twitter, and I joined it right before Musk bought it. And I'm just like, this is awkward. I'm just going to keep retreating back to the ecosystem of servers that I can't keep up with. Like, I get that being in little silos of invite-only spaces sucks as far as community building, but, like, it's where I stumbled into community, so I'm hanging out here on Discord. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, we are at that point in the timeline where Twitter is currently the app formerly known as Twitter.
Nice. Oh, my background just fell.
Oh, no.
I rolled right back into it.
But yeah, the boat brawl is a fantabulous thing, even if it is making TikTok a little bit unusable for anything else.
All right, so let me set this up. It's falling. There might be too much shit in this room. All right.
As long as it's falling towards you.
It's fine. It's fine. I can use my chair to push it back up.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw the boat brawl, but I don't know anything about it other than, like, what some people tried to attack a black security guard, some white people tried to attack a black security guard, and then, like, were reinforced, and there was, like, a back and forth. I watched the first minute of it, but quickly had no interest in continuing, because...
So there's a million different angles and a zillion different cuts and edits and memes. I haven't managed to see a good panorama cut of the whole thing, but the TLDR is a black security guard got jumped by a bunch of white douchebags, and he throws his hat into the air, and it's like a bat signal, and then all these black people show up and just beat the shit out of these white people who do a very bad job giving an account of themselves. And then the historical context is this is literally the park that was like the slave auction block warehouse nightmare hellscape of the Alabama like slave trade. Like, this riverfront park is the former place where the boats would pull up and like offload their human cargo into warehouses to then get put on the auction block. So there's this like deep, visceral, like generational, like we're fucking done energy coming out of this. And like every black reaction I've seen everywhere is just this like massive, joyful, like release of energy. And obviously there's going to be stupid fucking repercussions. This is not going to stay lighthearted forever, but like the gestalt energy is quite profound and truly hilarious to witness the reactions of, because it's just like this one guy jumps in the river and swims across and like pulls himself up on the dock to join in the fight. Right? Because I watched, so I knew how it ended, right? From all the memes and everything. And then I actually watched the video of the part where he's getting jumped by multiple people. And even knowing how it ended, my heart rate went up so hard, because you're watching the beginnings of a lynching, right? Like, that's what you're seeing, is the beginnings of mob violence that ends in death. But because he threw up the bat signal, and so many people were recording, and like the boat where the one video is recorded from, like at one point they're all singing at the situation, like, get the fuck out the way. Like, there's a whole boat of people just singing at the situation. And like, he goes down, and for a moment it's just like, oh no, there's 3 men kicking this guy in the head and beating up on him. And then just 1, 2, 3, 5, 8 people show up and just pull it apart and then start wailing on the white guys. And then the white guys try to run away. And the black guys are like, absolutely not. Mm-hmm. You do not get to start this shit. And then walk the fuck away. And it just becomes a whole thing. And a folding chair gets brought in, and it's just... Folding chairs are going to be the one word phrase that this is represented by forever.
Gotcha.
Is the folding chair. The folding chair is the symbol to remember. Because this is, I mean, this folding chair, it's not exactly in the timeline like the brick at Stonewall, but like, you know, it's got brick at Stonewall kind of energy to me. So yeah, that's that situation. And basically the guys tied up their boat where they shouldn't, and the security guard was like, you need to move your boat because this is a dock, and my job is to manage the moorings.
Right.
And you need to move your boat. And like, these people are being so belligerent. Just watching the body language from afar, it goes back and forth and back and forth, and they are being so belligerent. And this guy's just trying to do his job. Like,
right.
They fucked around and found out in the most visceral way possible. And like, literally, the ancestralness of it. Like, they've been doing this shit for hundreds of years and getting away with it. And today they didn't, or yesterday, I guess at this point, we're like 30 hours after the fact or something. I've gone on about this way too long, but that's just literally all that I can find on TikTok. So...
Because my TikTok is still full of people saying, so you may have had a traumatic childhood and autism. At which point I go, yes, anything. Anyway, moving on. Porn.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?